All right, good to see all of you this evening. Glad that you've made it out tonight to the service. And good to see you, and I'm so thankful some people walked in and sat in this section right here. Thank you all, Marty and Jane Ellen. I appreciate that. Good to see you. A number of people sick, other people getting sick, and I'm so glad you're well and here, aren't you? And so it's good to see you. Let's take our hymn books and let's stand, please, and let's turn to page 196. Rejoice in the Lord. Anybody rejoicing in the Lord tonight? All right, let's stand and let's sing this song. God never moves without purpose or plan. When trying his servant and holding a man, give thanks to the Lord, though your testing seems long. In darkness he giveth a song. Oh, rejoice in the Lord, he makes no mistake. He knoweth the end of each path that I take. For when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. I could not see through the shadows ahead, so I looked at the cross of my Savior instead. I bowed to the will of the Master that day. Then peace came and tears fled away. Oh, rejoice in the Lord, he makes no mistake. He knoweth the end of each path that I take. For when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. Now I can see testing comes from above. God strengthens his children and purges in love. My Father knows best, and I trust in his care. Through purging, more fruit I will bear. Oh, rejoice in the Lord, he makes no mistake. He knoweth the end of each path that I take. For when I am tried and purified, I shall come forth as gold. All right, you may be seated. Have a number of announcements that I want to go through real quick. I want to remind you, weather permitting, at 10 a.m. is the Ladies' Fellowship this Saturday. If there's a ton of snow on the ground or a bit of ice on the roads, it won't happen, okay? And we'll reschedule it for another Saturday. And that's going to be true of everything coming up this weekend. I want to remind you of the Children's Valentine Party, February 5th. That's going to be here before we know it. There's sign-up sheets out here for that. And then the Valentine Banquet. I sure hope we have more than 10 coming or so. I hope you'll sign up and come to the Valentine Banquet. Now, I see couples in here need to go ahead and sign up. Are you getting an idea of what I'm saying? Let's sign up. You don't have to be a couple to come. You can still come and enjoy yourself. And we'd love to have y'all come. Pastor Tim's been able to keep it down to $10 again this year. So if you will, please sign up for that. and also plan on fixing the cakes and pies. The young people are counting on you to be able to go camp this summer, and so let's plan on being there. It's not all about a lovey-dovey thing. We're trying to raise funds for the teens and get them to camp this summer. And so if you come, cakes, pies, I'm going to be ready to bid on Tom Cox's coconut pie, unless something can bring something that appeals to me more. And some of you do have those things. And so we'll see what happens. But the Valentine banquet, please be sure to sign up for that. And then there's a lot of ministry sign-up sheets on this side of the hallway over here. Now, if you go out this way, normally, you're going to have to make a special effort to go that way, to go sign up for the ministries. We need more nursery workers. We need more custodial workers. We definitely need more people mowing the yard. I don't want to do it every third week, so help us out. Might be fourth week, every fourth week so far. So if you can help us out with yard, custodial, any of those things, please sign up. Don't wait to see who signs up. Let's just go ahead and fulfill our responsibilities for those things. Looking forward to a great year, getting off to a good start, and we're hoping to see the Lord do great things this coming year. We're looking forward to revival in early March with Evangelist Barry Webb. He will be doing puppet things each night for the kids and the adults, and he'll be chalk art for the kids and the adults. You'll be as amazed as they are. The service might be a little bit longer than normal, but I think you can handle that. You watch 2-hour Hallmark movies, and it's the same thing over each time. Even some of the same people with different names. And I sit there as they're going through the movie. I say, okay, it's about 1:45, Karen, they're going to get in a fight. And at about 5 till, they'll start making up. And then they kiss as the movie ends. It's the way they all work, right? Of course, I have had to turn a few of those off this year. But anyway, I assure you that we won't be like that here. We're looking forward to a good year, be here for revival. Then we have a mission trip coming up. Then I've got a Baptist Bible conference that we'll be going to. And then we've got a mission trip to California that about 10 folks are going to. And so we're getting excited about the work getting started out in Big Bear. From the luncheon we had here today, we've had here last week. We've had several other pastors call in and inquire and are going to be helping out. And so that's a terrific thing, and we're glad to hear other churches supporting that as well. All right, let's take our hymn books. I was going to let you be seated. But how can you be seated and sing Standing on the Promises? I should have used this as first. Because I notice you like to remain seated. Do you think you can get enough energy to stand to sing 2 verses of Standing on the Promise? Think about it this way. You might not get to sing Sunday if the weatherman's right. Let's hope he's not. But then again, there's a whole lot of teachers and students hoping he is. So yeah, I know there are people who have been praying for snow. We should have been more specific, not that will keep us out of church on Sunday. All right, 180, first and last verse, Standing on the Promises. Standing on the promises of Christ my King, through eternal ages let his praises ring. Glory in the highest I will shout and sing, standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises of God, my Savior. Standing. I'm standing on the seated. Again, it's good to see you all here tonight. Let's take our Bibles and let's go to Nehemiah chapter 2. Nehemiah chapter 2. As we look at Nehemiah chapter 2, I want to preach a message tonight entitled, From God's Hand to Nehemiah's Heart to the Workers' Hands. There's two things that we're involved with as a church right now that I think this message is critical for our ministries that we have here. The more hands that are involved in the work, the less work for each hand to do. And so we want to make sure that we're involved this coming year. And then also with Big Bear Baptist Church getting started, it's wonderful to be able to go out there and give a hand and getting out information and helping with services and all the services that they'll be having. It's amazing what God is doing here and out there. Now, I believe that Kinston, North Carolina needs good churches, and I believe that California needs good churches. And we kind of need to have that. We need to have the heart of Nehemiah. Nehemiah had gone to Jerusalem and searched it out in chapter 1 and the first part of chapter 2. And God moved on Nehemiah's heart to go back to Jerusalem and to get the walls built that were a disgrace. Moral walls need to be built in America again. They need to be built here. They need to be built out in California. So God placed a burning conviction in Nehemiah's heart for the work that needed to be done in Jerusalem. I've had that for many years here in Kinston, North Carolina. Jackie Elwart has that, Pastor Jackie has that for Big Bear, California. And so there's a burning in his heart for that work there, mine here, David down in Holly Ridge, David Hildebrand, and Hal Cole's pastoring up at Trinity Baptist Church in Galen, Michigan, I believe it is. No, he's not in Gaylord. He was in Gaylord. He's in another town now, but at Trinity Baptist Church. And so God has established people with hearts for particular works. And we need to be as involved in helping with those as we can. The moral walls of America are crumbling at an alarming rate. Churches are getting that way. COVID has driven the final nail in the coffin of many churches in America. As a matter of fact, some of the churches out in Big Bear, we were told when we were there, had never met again since COVID started and probably would not be opening again. What an opportunity to plant a new church there. We need men and women of prayer, faith, and courage, and of action to be involved in our ministries and our churches in America for the Lord. It's a good thing to have a pastor that has a heart for the Lord, but the people need a heart for the Lord too. It's good to have a pastor that will help mow the churchyard. It's a good thing to have a pastor that will help clean and vacuum in the church. Pastors, I ought to say. But that's work for everybody to do. Do you know why I do it? I don't consider myself any better than anybody else. If I ask you to go mow, then I feel it's my responsibility to do it too, as long as I'm able. And so there needs to be a heart for the work. That's the first thing I want you to see. You must have a heart for God's work. Preacher, that's what we pay you for. Well, if I didn't get paid, I'd still have a heart for God's work. God's hand safely guided Nehemiah's heart to Jerusalem. My Jerusalem is Kinston, North Carolina. Pastor Jackie's Jerusalem is Big Bear, California. David Hildebrand's Jerusalem is Holly Ridge, North Carolina, in the Jacksonville area. And we could go on and on with the missionaries that we would support, what their Jerusalem is. Though the Jews took little notice of Nehemiah, he was observing their state and needs very closely. Have you ever noticed that around your house, that if you leave things where they are for a while, you don't notice they're out of place anymore after a little bit? Anybody other than Ms. Knapp notice that? You know, there's certain places we can put things in the church here and we don't notice them. And then we get looking for it and we can't remember where we put them because we hadn't noticed it in quite a while. Jerusalem, the walls were demolished. And the people had been around the demolished walls so long that they didn't recognize what a bad shape they were in. What was a mess at one time was just the norm now. And they didn't realize the mess that they were in. Dedicated leaders will be awake when others are asleep and can see more in the darkness than others can in the light. God chooses to begin his work in the heart of Nehemiah. He didn't go to all the people in Jerusalem. He chose a man to go there and to do the work. But God will begin his work in your heart as well if you'll catch the same burden that your pastors and others in the church have. Now, I'm probably preaching to the choir on Wednesday night, but I want you to visit the sign-up sheets out there before you leave tonight so we know who's going to do what this coming year. Nehemiah's heart would not let him reveal God's hand immediately. In verse 12, Nehemiah 2:12. I never read the scripture, did I? Well, we'll take it as we go. Neither told I any man what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem. Neither was there any beast with me, save the beast that I rode on. Let me just tell you a little biblical principle that is good to follow. Don't tell people what God's laying on your heart until you're positive he's called you to do the job. And even then, you don't tell everything that you know to everybody that you know, or it's going to invite a whole lot of opposition to start with. I hope that you've realized through the years, I tried to explain a lot of things to you before we do it. Pastor Bradley always told me, don't surprise your people with anything. Let them know what you're thinking, where you're going, what you're doing. But there's just some things that even in the deacons meeting, I say, I don't want the church to know about this until we've got all the details worked out. Oh, preacher, you're trying to hide something from? No, I want to know what we're doing before the deacons approve it and before we bring it to the church. I want to have a good idea of what we're doing and whether it'll work or not. Nehemiah was that way. Spurgeon said, plans are best kept secret till they're matured. We must serve the Lord prudently as well as zealously. Lord, teach us how to do this. You say, who's Spurgeon? Oh, he was just a great preacher from many years ago. And then in the treasury of Scripture knowledge, we have this. The pious and noble-minded man attributes everything to God. If he purposed any good, it was because God put it in his heart. If he did or received any good, it was because the good hand of God was upon him. If he expected any good, it was because he earnestly prayed God to remember him for good. And so what I want to happen here, what I'd love to see happen for Pastor Jackie in Big Bear and then David even down in Holly Ridge, is for the burden that's on our heart to become your burden too. For right here at Kinston. You know, we've got our work to do. We've lost about 20% of our congregation due to COVID. Some of them, because of health, just can't come back. Are we going to be satisfied with that, or are we going to help those folks and then try to get more new folks to come? What are we going to do? I think we need to determine to press on and just keep on witnessing for the Lord wherever we go. Nehemiah's heart would not be satisfied without seeing his own eyes the need of Jerusalem. Now, I'm nosy. We'll call somebody in to look at stuff and to do work here around the church. What do you think I do? You think I sit in my office and say, boy, I hope and pray they get it right. And I wonder if they know where this is at and that's at. You see, I was here when all this was put together. And though I've forgotten a lot of things, there's a lot of things I haven't forgotten. And so when the air conditioner people were here giving us quotes a few weeks back, I was letting them know where I thought the units were and different things. So, and sure enough, we'd get up in the ceiling and they were somewhere near where I thought they were. And, I like to see what's going on. Anybody like to do that? It's kind of like you guys hunting deer. I'm hunting the issues around here. What can we do, Next. Here's what Nehemiah did, verses 13 through 16. And I went out by night by the gate of the valley, even before the dragon well, to the dung port, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and the gates were consumed with fire. Then I went on to the gate of the fountain and to the king's pool, but there was no place for the beast that was under me to pass. Then went I up in the night by the brook and viewed the wall and turned back and entered by the gate of the valley and so returned. And the rulers knew not whither I went or what I did, neither had I as yet told it to the Jews, nor to the priests, nor to the nobles, nor to the rulers, nor to the rest that did the work. I don't think it's wise to tell politicians what you're doing until you know what you're doing. And then I'm not so sure it's wise to tell them anyway. But in the days we live, you got to have building permits. You got to have all those things, so you have to. But know what you're going to do ahead of time. Nehemiah viewed the need from every perspective, inside and out. God had not only convicted him of the need, but was blueprinting in Nehemiah's mind the work that needed to be done. A heart for God has an open mind to God and his work. Nehemiah traveling around Jerusalem and looking at the work that need to be done is kind of like some of those nights that I'm laying in bed and can't sleep and thinking how we're going to do something. And I'm imagining in my mind the different ways to work it out. So you must have a leader that has a heart for God's work. I know in Big Bear, California, Pastor Jackie has a heart for that. Number two, you must have a heart to influence hands for God's work. I thought when we initially started putting the mission trip together that we might have 4 or 5 people go. We're around 10 people going. There are some of you that ought not to go because of health's sake. Because if you have any breathing issues, when we get to Big Bear, we're going up 7,000 feet. And there is such a thing as altitude sickness that folks can get there. I am so glad for the number of people that are going. Consistent living in reproach becomes immune to the goodness of God. Nehemiah 2:17, Then said I unto them, You see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lieth waste, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. Come and let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more reproach. I used this when we were planning to build here. The folks had been in Jerusalem for a number of years and had just gotten used to the rubbish that was there. It's kind of like some of our big cities today. They've just gotten used to all the homelessness and everything else, and they don't see it as a problem anymore. It's just a part of life. Well, the Lord put a burden on Nehemiah's heart to get those walls built. The people had lived in rubbish without walls for 90 years. Now listen to me. The longer you live in sin or rubbish of life, the more insensitive you become to it. There were some things around our house last year in the yard and shed and in the house that I sat down at the beginning of last year and I did what my dad always did. He would make a list. Daddy had like 160 some things on his list that needed to be done at the house. And one Christmas we were all there and we got his list and saw him leave the room, and we started adding stupid little things to his list. I've never seen my dad so offended in his life when he saw that we had messed with his list. He said, "That's important stuff. Don't mess with that." He marked everything out we put on there. I sat down and made me a list of things that I hadn't touched and I hadn't fixed in a long time. And so this year, I got everything except for 2 things done on that list this past year. They'll be on my list this year, plus more. We get used to the way things are and we forget about it. You know, I'm afraid that as believers, we're getting used to America in the state that it's in. And we shouldn't. We shouldn't. The people had become insensitive to their depraved condition. What do you think about America? Are we becoming insensitive to the immorality of our country? The only people who were conscious and keenly sensitive to the state of Jerusalem was their enemies. And they were around Jerusalem, and it would be a whole lot easier to attack with the walls down than with the walls built, right? 1 Corinthians 15:34, Paul says, "Awake to righteousness and sin not. For some have not the knowledge of God. I speak this to your shame." Do you think there's anybody in Lenoir County that doesn't know about God? Mm-hmm. Do you think we ought to be trying to reach them? Do you think God's proud of the work we're doing and reaching Lenoir County and Jones County and Wayne County and Pitt County and Craven County? I have to say all that. And Greene County, because that's where people are from here. But, preacher, we just don't have time. And they didn't have time to build the walls either, did they? God had placed the conviction for the work in Nehemiah's heart and had poured his goodness out to him in preparation for the work. Verse 18, "Then I told them of how the hand of my God was good upon me." I want to ask you some questions. Has God been good to New Testament Baptist Church despite COVID? Has God enabled us to help other missionaries and help other people do things? Yes, he has. I was stunned when I looked at the financial report this week. God has blessed us in what we use to keep this place running and in missions. And we need to make sure that we're willing to invest that, not just right here. Missions is for out there. General funds for right here. And we need to make sure that we invest that money in works and help get works started. Philippians 2:13, "For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure." Well, you know that Nehemiah had shared his burden with the king, and in verse 18, as also the king's words that he had spoken unto me. The king got behind it and allowed Nehemiah to go there. All legal matters had been resolved for the work to begin. Now, we need to honor legal matters. We don't need to try to find ways to get around the legal issues, especially when building. Okay, I got some ladies that said amen. And in verse 18, Nehemiah says, okay, we got all that work done, we got all the legal stuff done, and that's what we did when we were building this building. Now, if you're going to be building, we have a building inspector here. He knows all the ins and outs about building, right, Paul? Yeah. And he's going to tell you to get a building permit to be able to do it. I don't want to mess with that. You'll regret later that you didn't if you don't. God and government issues were resolved. All Nehemiah needed now was people with a mind to work. I'm going to be checking whether you got a mind to work or not on whether your name's on any of these lists out here or not. Oh, preacher, you just want everybody to work. You just want people to do things so you don't have to. No, I do it too. I'm involved too. And they said, here's what the people said. I'm half tempted to get y'all to read it with me. Nehemiah 2:18, and they said, let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for the good work. Is this a good work? Do you think Big Bear Baptist will be a good work? Do you think what David's doing in Jacksonville, Holly Ridge is a good work? Been there, it is. It's a good work. Yeah, they're good works. What about our missionaries? Do you think what they're doing is a good work? Yeah, but preacher, I just got so much to do already. Could it be you have too much to do? That you don't have time to do anything for God? Now, I appreciate everybody who's involved in these ministries in the past. And if you're at home sick and you're watching on live stream now, we're praying you won't be sick forever. You can actually call in and get Jennifer to sign your name to the list if you would like to. Y'all don't like this, do you? If you plan on coming back, get signed up. Become a part of the church. Preacher, I can't this. I hear, preacher, I would, but I can't. Preacher, I would, but I can't. Preacher, I'm old. I am too. Philippians 4:13. Does anybody know what it says? I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. Mrs. Knapp down here is 97 years old, and she has attended church as well as anybody else in this church. All during COVID. She's been here. She's actually encouraged me at times, spoke to me, encouraged me. I thank God for you. God, I have never yet heard her say, I'm too old. Third thing, we need to have a heart to instruct God's enemies about His work. I remember when we put the sign up out here on the property, future home of New Testament Baptist Church. I actually had a couple of people, not church members. Y'all really think y'all going to be able to build a church there? I said, well, I'm praying that God will build a church there. How in what y'all with the size church you got down there going to build a big church up there? Well, I believe God can do that. A lot of people like to laugh at God's people, but God will prosper His work anyway. Verses 19 and 20. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, these are enemies of the Jewish people, and Geshem the Arabian heard it, they laughed us to scorn and despised us. You know why they laughed them to scorn? Because they hadn't done anything for 90 years. Now all of a sudden, this guy shows up named Nehemiah, and they're going to build the walls. And they despised us and said, what is this thing you do? Will you rebel against the king? No, the king's already approved it. Then answered I them and said unto them, the God of heaven, He will prosper us. People will always laugh at the attempts of God's people to accomplish a work for Him. God will prosper His work despite the laughs of ungodly people. Verse 20. Therefore, we, His servants, will arise and build. God will prosper us. That's why we're going to arise and build. Preacher, please tell us we're not going to build another program. No, I'm not planning on building anything here, but there's work in California that needs to be invested in. There are mission field works all around the world that need to be invested in. God's people, when having repented of sins, have accomplished great feats for the Lord when following the leaders God provided. Despite the opposition, the scorn, and the laughter, they were delivered from Egypt and crossed the Red Sea under Moses' leadership. They entered the Promised Land and were victorious in battle under Joshua's leadership. They became a mighty nation under David's leadership. They sinned and were enslaved under sin's leadership. They returned to their land and rebuilt the temple under Ezra's leadership, and now they must rebuild the wall of Jerusalem under Nehemiah's leadership. So God raised up men for every job that needed to be done. He raised up men for those jobs. You and I can arise and continue to build the work of New Testament Baptist Church for the glory of God. How many of you want your church to be around here for your kids? How many of you want to be around here for your grandkids? Then we have to keep working today. You know, I've watched people around here. There are folks who probably ought not to be doing anything that are doing a whole lot of work around here. And they know who they are. They're constantly working. As a matter of fact, I can't keep them away from here. And when they see things that need to be done, they do it. They provide it. They get the work done. And every one of you, in your unique way, have fit into New Testament Baptist Church in a unique position that God put you here for. Well, the enemies started making more fun of them, and Nehemiah told them, "You have no portion, nor right, nor memorial in Jerusalem." But those of us who are here, we have a responsibility, and we need to do those responsibilities. Matthew Poole said, "We desire not your favor or friendship or help in this matter, and you have nothing to do to inquire into or meddle with our concerns or to hinder us in our present undertaking." It is really interesting when people want to tell us how to run this church when they've not been successful in any church they've been in. Isn't that interesting? Those who laugh at us, despise us, and scorn us. People laugh at us. Well, and scorn us. Have you ever heard, "Oh, you go to that church?" Anybody ever heard that other than me? Or for me it is, "Oh, you're the pastor of that church? Well, what do you know about our church?" It's really interesting, some of the things some of them say, and sometimes the things they say are absolutely not so. Well, who's going to be a Nehemiah for the Lord in 2022? Who's going to be willing to work around here? Who's going to be willing to invest in the time around here? Who of you will continue to be workers for missions and want to see mission work done? Our generations, and I'm saying generations, older, not so older, middle age, younger, and real young. We've all played church long enough. Right? Let's put our effort into it. Let's really work hard. Now, having said all of this, there are those of you in here that have carried your load and other people's loads this year. And I commend you and I thank you for that. All I want to do this year is to share the load with a whole lot more people so that we can see God's work continue on. Diane, we need more people in nursery still? Yes, we still do. You know what happens when people say, "Oh, well, I'm not going to be involved with that"? It just requires more and more people to miss more and more of the services. Well, I come to church to be fed spiritually. Well, everybody wants to be. So we need to have more workers in nursery. Paul, you reckon we ought to get more people signed up for yard than that's signed up already?
Yes, sir.
Would you would like to benefit? I saw that. That's why I'm asking. I wouldn't have even asked if I hadn't have already known that you signed up. That wouldn't be embarrassing to ask somebody that and hadn't signed up, right?
Yeah, I'd probably be ready.
Yeah. But, you know, I've looked at the list. I know what's on there. I saw that. You got the other guys with you right there. Okay, you volunteered them. Okay, so they don't know they've signed up yet? They do now? Okay, all right. So Paul's volunteering people. Good. All right. If all of us get at it, it'll get done a whole lot easier and all. And I'm telling you, there are people that take these ministries seriously. And I know that when they are doing their responsibilities, it is done seriously and done right. And I thank God for that, for everybody that does that. I try to do it right too. Somebody said to me, "Preacher, you're preaching better this year." Maybe you're listening better, I don't know. But anyway, I hope and pray that this is going to be a great year for us all the way around. All right, let's have some prayer time.